Captain Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the flickering screen in front of him. The bridge of the mining ship New Hope was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines. His crew was busy with their daily tasks. But Jake felt something was wrong. The red light on his communication panel had been blinking for the past 10 minutes. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal," said Lisa Brooks, the ship's engineer. She was a small woman with short brown hair and quick hands that could fix anything. "It's coming from the mining colony on Korath 7. Jake frowned. Korath 7 was known throughout the galaxy for one thing. It was home to the Vorthik. The Vorthik were 8 feet tall, covered in thick scales, and had claws that could cut through steel. They were the kind of creatures that made other species cross to the other side of the galaxy just to avoid them. "Are you sure it's a distress signal?" Jake asked. "A Vorthik don't usually ask for help." Ryan Carter, the ship's medical officer, looked up from his work. He was a tall man with gentle eyes who had joined the crew because he wanted to help people, no matter what species they were. "The signal is definitely asking for help, Captain. It's in basic galactic language, not their usual hunting calls." Amy Rodriguez, the security chief, walked over to Jake's chair. She was tough and smart, with black hair tied back in a tight ponytail. "Captain, we should stay away from this. The Vorthik are dangerous. They've wiped out entire colonies before." Jake stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. In the distance, he could see the dark planet of Korath 7. It looked like a ball of rock floating in space, covered in deep valleys and high mountains. The Vorthik had built their mining operation there because the planet had rare metals that were worth a lot of money. What does the message say exactly? Jake asked, got Lisa read from her screen. "Colony under attack. Need immediate help. Situation critical." She looked up at Jake. "That's all it says, Captain. It keeps repeating." Jake thought about what to do. The Vorthik had never asked anyone for help before. They were proud creatures who believed they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. For them to send a distress signal meant something very bad was happening. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "we have families back on Earth. We can't risk our lives for creatures that would probably kill us if they met us on any other day." Jake understood Amy's worry. The Vorthik were known for their violent nature. They hunted for sport and had destroyed many peaceful colonies. But something about the distress signal bothered him. There was fear in it, real fear. "Set course for Korath 7, Jake said finally. "Sir?" Amy asked, surprised. "You heard me. We're going to help them." Lisa started working on the navigation controls. "It'll take us 6 hours to get there, Captain." During the journey, Jake gathered his crew in the main meeting room. The room was small but comfortable, with a round table in the center and chairs around it. The walls were covered with star charts and pictures of Earth. "I know you're all worried about this mission," Jake began. "The Vorthik are dangerous, and they're not known for being friendly. But they're asking for help, and that means something is seriously wrong." Ryan nodded. "If they're in trouble, then whatever is attacking them must be worse than they are." "That's exactly what I'm thinking," Jake said. "The Vorthik are apex predators. They're at the top of the food chain. If something is making them afraid, then it's probably a threat to everyone in the galaxy." Amy crossed her arms. "But why should we care? They've killed thousands of innocent people." "Because," Jake said, "sometimes helping your enemies is the right thing to do. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn something from them." When they arrived at Korath 7, the first thing they saw was smoke rising from the planet's surface. The Vorthik mining colony was under attack, but not by any species they recognized. Strange black creatures were swarming over the buildings like insects. "What are those things?" Lisa asked, staring at the viewing screen. Jake had never seen anything like them before. The creatures looked like they were made of dark liquid, constantly changing shape. They moved fast and seemed to work together like a hive mind. Ryan, scan those creatures. I want to know what we're dealing with. Ryan worked quickly at his station. Captain, these readings are strange. The creatures don't seem to be fully solid. They're some kind of biomechanical hybrid. And Captain ... They're consuming the Vorthic. Consuming them how? They're eating their brain tissue. It looks like they're absorbing their memories and knowledge. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying these things are learning from the Vorthic by eating them? That's exactly what I'm saying. Amy looked pale. If they can learn from the Vorthic, they'll become just as dangerous. Maybe more dangerous. Jake made a decision. We're going down there. Captain, that's suicide, Amy protested. Maybe, but if we don't stop these creatures here, they'll spread to other worlds, including Earth. The team prepared for the mission. They put on their protective suits and gathered their weapons. Jake knew their human technology wasn't as advanced as some alien species, but humans had one advantage. They could think creatively under pressure. They landed their shuttle near the main Vorthic compound. The buildings were made of dark metal and built into the side of a mountain. Smoke was rising from several structures, and they could hear the sounds of battle coming from inside Dot as they approached the compound. A massive Vorthic warrior appeared in front of them. He was even bigger than Jake had expected, with scales that looked like armor and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. This was Corvus Prime, the leader of the colony. Humans, Corvus growled, his voice deep and threatening. You are weak creatures. You cannot help us. Jake stepped forward, not showing any fear. We received your distress signal. We're here to help. Corvus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think your soft skin and weak bodies can fight the Nethies? They have already killed half of my warriors. The Nethies? The creatures that consume minds. They came from the deep space 3 days ago. They adapt to our bioelectric defenses. They learn our fighting styles by eating our fallen brothers. Jake looked at his team. They all looked scared, but they also looked determined. We may be weak, Jake said to Corvus, but we're here, and we're not leaving until this is over. Corvus stared at Jake for a long moment. Then he growled something. In his own language. Very well, human. But when you die, do not blame me for not warning you. As they entered the compound, Jake saw the true horror of the situation. The Nethies creatures were everywhere, flowing like black water through the corridors. They had no fixed shape, changing from liquid to solid as needed. When they attacked, they moved faster than anything Jake had ever seen. But Jake also noticed something else. The Vorthic warriors, despite their fearsome reputation, were fighting defensively. They were scared, and fear was making them weak. Ryan, Amy, Lisa, Jake called to his team. Remember what we learned in training. Fear is just another enemy. We can beat it. As the first wave of Nethies creatures came toward them, Jake realized this was going to be the fight of their lives. But he also realized something else. For the first time in galactic history, humans and Vorthic were about to fight side by side. The first attack came fast. 3 Nethies creatures flowed toward Jake and his team like black water with teeth. The Vorthic warriors around them stepped back, their usual confidence shaken. These creatures had already killed many of their brothers. But Jake did something unexpected. Instead of running or firing his weapon, he pulled out a small device from his belt. It was a mining explosive, something Lisa had modified during their trip to the planet. Lisa, now! Jake shouted. Lisa pressed a button on her control pad. The explosive device in Jake's hand began to flash with bright light. The Nethies creatures stopped moving toward them and began to shake violently. The light disrupts their neural connections, Ryan explained to the surprised Vorthic warriors. I studied their brain patterns during our scan. They need darkness to think clearly. Amy opened fire with her weapon, but not at the creatures. Instead, she shot at the ceiling lights, making them flicker and flash randomly. The Nethys creatures became confused and began moving in circles. Corvus Prime watched this with amazement. "You fight like no species I have ever seen," he said to Jake. "We fight like humans," Jake replied, throwing another light device down the corridor. "We use what we have." The battle continued for hours. The humans used tactics that neither the Vorthic nor the Nethys had seen before. Lisa rigged the mining equipment to create traps. She connected the drilling machines to the electrical system, creating barriers of energy that the Nethys could not cross. Ryan discovered that certain chemicals from Earth could hurt the Nethys. He mixed cleaning supplies from their ship with local minerals to create a spray that burned the creatures like acid. Amy used psychological warfare. She recorded the sounds of dying Nethys and played them through the compound speaker system. The creatures became afraid and started making mistakes. During one particularly hard fight, Jake saw Corvus Prime surrounded by 5 Nethys creatures. The Vorthic leader was fighting bravely, but he was tired and hurt. His bioelectric defenses were weak, and the creatures were moving in for the kill. Without thinking, Jake ran toward the battle. He threw himself between Corvus and the nearest Nethys creature. The creature's claws ripped through Jake's protective suit and into his chest. Pain shot through his body, but he did not move away. "Use your bioelectric attack now," Jake shouted to Corvus. Corvus was shocked. Jake was using his own body as a shield, protecting a Vorthic warrior who was supposed to be his enemy. But Corvus did not waste the chance. He released a powerful electric blast that destroyed all 5 creatures. Jake fell to the ground, blood flowing from his wounds. Ryan quickly ran to help him, while Amy and Lisa kept fighting the other creatures. "Why did you do that?" Corvus asked, kneeling beside Jake. "I am your enemy. My people have killed your people." Jake looked up at the huge Vorthic warrior. "Because it was the right thing to do. And because we're not enemies right now, we're fighting the same battle." Corvus stared at Jake for a long moment. Something changed in his red eyes. "You are a strange species, human." The battle was not over. More Nethys creatures were coming from the lower levels of the compound. Amy took charge while Ryan worked on Jake's wounds. "We need to get to there." "Source," Amy said. "They're coming from somewhere deeper in the mine." A young Vorthic warrior named Thakis spoke up. "There is a deep tunnel system below. That is where they first appeared." "Then that's where we need to go," Amy decided. Corvus Prime stood up. "I will lead the way. You humans have earned the right to fight beside us." Amy looked at Jake, who was still hurt but could walk. "Captain, I don't think you should come with us." "I'm fine," Jake said, though he was clearly in pain. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." The group made their way to the lower levels of the compound. The tunnels were dark and narrow, perfect for the Nethys creatures. But the humans had learned to use the darkness to their advantage. Lisa had created small robots from mining equipment. These robots moved ahead of the group, making noise and light to confuse the creatures. Ryan had developed a new chemical spray that could track the Nethys even when they were invisible. As they went deeper, Amy noticed something strange. The Vorthic warriors were starting to fight differently. Instead of attacking alone, they were working together with the humans. They were learning from human tactics. "Thakis," Amy called to the young Vorthic. "Can you use your claws to cut through that wall? We need to create a new path." Thakis was surprised that a human was giving him orders, but he did what Amy asked. Soon, other Vorthic warriors were following Amy's commands without question. "Your female warrior is very skilled," Corvus said to Jake. "She thinks like a hunter." "Amy is one of our best," Jake replied. "She knows how to lead others." Deep in the tunnels, they found the source of the Nethi's invasion. It was a huge ship that had crashed into the planet's core. The ship was organic, grown rather than built, and it was producing more Nethi's creatures every minute. "We need to destroy the ship," Ryan said, "but our weapons are not strong enough." Lisa studied the ship with her scanner. The ship is connected to the planet's energy core. If we can overload it, the feedback will destroy the ship. "How do we overload it?" Corvus asked. Lisa smiled. "We use Vorthic bioelectricity and human creativity." The plan was dangerous. The Vorthic warriors would use their electrical powers to overload the ship's systems, while the humans created a feedback loop using the mining equipment. If it worked, the ship would be destroyed. If it failed, the explosion would kill everyone. In the tunnels, "This is madness," Bacchus said. "We cannot trust our lives to human machines." But Corvus Prime had made his decision. "We will trust the humans. They have proven themselves in battle." The battle for the ship was the hardest fight of their lives. The Nethi's creatures seemed to know what they were trying to do and attacked with everything they had. But the combined force of humans and Vorthic was too strong. Amy led the defense while Lisa worked on the machines. Ryan used his chemical weapons to keep the creatures away from the critical equipment. Jake, despite his wounds, coordinated the entire operation. The Vorthic warriors followed human commands without question now. They had seen how human tactics worked and trusted human leadership. Corvus Prime himself took orders from Amy during the final assault. When Lisa finally activated the feedback loop, the ship began to shake and crack. Energy poured out of it like lightning, and the Nethi's creatures began to die by the hundreds. "Everyone, out!" Jake shouted. "The whole tunnel system is going to collapse." They ran through the dark tunnels as the planet shook around them. Behind them, they could hear the ship tearing itself apart. The Nethi's creatures were screaming as their home was destroyed. They reached the surface just as the underground explosion sent shockwaves through the entire planet. The Vorthic compound was damaged, but it was still standing. More importantly, the Nethys were gone. Corvus Prime stood beside Jake as they watched the smoke rise from the mine entrance. "You have done something that no other species has done. Human, you have fought beside the Vorthic and survived." "We did it together," Jake said. "None of us could have won alone." "Yes," Corvus agreed, "together." He paused and looked at Jake with new respect. "I have sent a message to other Vorthic colonies. I have told them about the humans who fight without fear and lead without cruelty." Amy walked over to them. "Captain, we're getting messages from other parts of the galaxy. Word is spreading about what happened here." Jake nodded. He had a feeling this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of dangerous species that others feared and avoided. But maybe, just maybe, humans could be the bridge between fear and understanding. As they prepared to leave Korath 7, Corvus Prime approached Jake one last time. "Human Jake Morrison, you and your people are welcome among the Vorthic. We will remember what you have done here." Jake shook the massive creature's clawed hand. "And we'll remember that the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy can also be the most honorable." The New Hope lifted off from Korath 7 with a new understanding. They had not just fought a battle. They had made the first alliance between humans and one of the galaxy's most feared species. But Jake had a feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. 3 weeks after the battle on Korath 7, Jake Morrison was sitting in his captain's chair when the communications panel started flashing with an urgent message. The New Hope was traveling through a quiet sector of space, heading back to Earth for repairs and rest. "Captain, we're getting a strange signal," said Lisa Brooks, looking confused at her instruments. "It's not coming from any known species." Jake stood up and walked to her station. "What kind of signal?" It's very cold, sir. I mean, the signal itself is cold. The frequency is so low, it's almost freezing our equipment. Ryan Carter looked up from his medical station. That's impossible. Radio signals can't be cold. This one is, Lisa insisted. And there's something else. The signal is asking for humans specifically. It mentions the battle on Korath 7. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. News of their fight alongside the Vorthik was spreading through the galaxy faster than he had expected. What does the message say? Lisa read from her screen. Human warriors who fight beside the feared ones. We need your help. Our world dies. Only you can understand. Coordinates attached. Amy Rodriguez walked over to join them. Captain, this feels like a trap. How do we know this isn't some enemy trying to use our reputation against us? Before Jake could answer, another message came. Through. This one was from Corvus Prime on Korath 7. Human Jake Morrison, the Cryozerg have contacted us. They are ancient beings, older than most species in the galaxy. They do not ask for help lightly. We recommend you meet with them. Jake had heard stories about the Cryozerg. They were silicon-based creatures that lived in the coldest parts of space. Their touch could freeze most life forms instantly, and they had been isolated for thousands of years because other species were afraid of them. Set course for the coordinates, Jake decided, but keep our weapons ready. The journey took them to the edge of the galaxy, where the stars were far apart and space was darker and colder. When they arrived at the Cryozerg homeworld, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The planet was covered in ice and crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds. The Cryozerg cities were built into the ice itself, with towers that reached high into the frozen sky. It was beautiful, but it was also deadly. The temperature on the planet was so cold that most life forms would die in seconds. Captain, we're getting a transmission, Lisa reported. It's from the planet's surface. The voice that came through their speakers was strange. It sounded like wind blowing through ice caves. Human vessel, welcome to Cryozerg. I am Frost Mother, leader of our people. Please come to our city. We have prepared a safe place for warm-blooded creatures. Jake gathered his team for the mission, but this time he also brought 2 new crew members. Commander Kate Sullivan was a diplomat who specialized in dealing with alien species. She was calm and smart, with the ability to understand different cultures quickly. Dr. Ben Parker was a psychologist who studied how different species think and behave. He was quiet and thoughtful, always watching and learning from others. This is going to be more dangerous than Korath 7, Jake explained to his team. The Cryozerg can kill us just by touching us. We need to be very careful. They landed their shuttle in a special area that the Cryozerg had prepared for them. The landing pad was heated to keep them alive, and there was a transparent tunnel that led to the main city. As they walked through the tunnel, Jake saw Cryozerg for the first time. They were tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. Their bodies glowed with a soft blue light, and they moved in a way that was both graceful and alien. Frost Mother met them at the entrance to the city. She was the most beautiful creature Jake had ever seen, but also the most dangerous. Her body was made of perfect ice crystal, and cold air flowed around her like a living thing. Humans, she said, her voice like singing ice. You are the first warm-blooded creatures to visit our world in over 1,000 years. Kate Sullivan stepped forward. We received your message. You said your world was dying? Frost Mother nodded sadly. Come, I will show you. She led them deeper into the city, always staying far enough away so that her cold would not hurt them. The Cryozerg city was incredible. The buildings were carved from ice and crystal, and they glowed with their own light. But Jake noticed that many of the buildings were empty. Our people are dying, Frost Mother explained. A plague has come to our world, but it is not a disease that affects flesh. It is a mechanical plague that destroys our crystal bodies. They entered a large hall where Jake saw the horror of the situation. Hundreds of cryozerg lay on crystal tables, their bodies cracked and broken. Some had holes in their chests where their energy cores should be. Others were simply piles of broken crystal. The plague came from space, Frost Mother continued. Machines that consume silicon and crystal. They reproduce by eating our people. We cannot fight them because they adapt to our cold attacks. Doctor. Ben Parker studied the broken cryozerg with his instruments. This is similar to what we saw on Korath 7. The Nethes consumed organic matter, and these machines consume silicon. Are you saying the same enemy is behind both attacks? Jake asked. It's possible, Ben replied. Someone is sending different types of plagues against different species. Kate Sullivan walked to Frost Mother. Why did you call for humans? Why not ask other species for help? Frost Mother's crystal eyes glowed brighter. Because we heard what you did on Korath 7. You fought beside the Vorthic creatures that others fear. We are also feared. We have been alone for so long that we forgot what it was like to have allies. But we're warm-blooded, Amy pointed out. We can't even touch you without dying. We have been working on a solution, Frost Mother said. She led them to another room where cryozerg scientists were working on strange suits. We have created protective clothing that will allow us to work together safely. Lisa examined the suits with interest. These are amazing. They use energy fields to regulate temperature. But they're not finished. No, Frost Mother admitted. We need help to complete them. We need someone who understands both our technology and warm-blooded biology. Jake made a decision. We'll help you, but first we need to contact our allies. Over. The next few days, something incredible happened. Jake contacted Corvus Prime on Korath 7, and the Vorthic leader agreed to send warriors to help the cryozerg. It was the first time in galactic history that the Vorthic and cryozerg had worked together. The cooperation was not easy. The Vorthic were hot-blooded and aggressive, while the cryozerg were cold and logical. But the humans served as translators and mediators, helping both species understand each other. Amy Rodriguez proved to be excellent at organizing the joint operations. She created teams that mixed human, Vorthic, and cryozerg skills. Her ability to see the strengths of each species and use them effectively impressed everyone. Ryan Carter worked with cryozerg scientists to develop new weapons that could fight the mechanical plague. By combining human medicine, Vorthic bioelectricity, and cryozerg crystal technology, they created weapons that were more effective than anything any single species could make. The battle against the mechanical plague was different from the fight on Korath 7. The machines were smart and adaptable. But they had one weakness. They could not understand cooperation between different species. During the final battle, Jake led a mixed team of humans, Vorthic, and cryozerg against the plague's central control unit. The machines kept adapting to fight each species separately, but they could not adapt to fight all three species working together. Corvus Prime used his bioelectric powers to disrupt the machine's sensors. Frost Mother and her people used their crystal technology to trap the machines in ice. The humans coordinated the attack and found creative solutions when the plan went wrong. When the battle was over, the mechanical plague was destroyed. But, more importantly, three species that had been enemies or strangers had become allies. You have done something amazing, Frost Mother said to Jake as they prepared to leave. You have brought together species that were meant to be apart. Maybe they were never meant to be apart, Jake replied. Maybe fear just made us think they were. As the New Hope prepared to leave the cryozerg homeworld, Jake received another message. This one was from a species he had never heard of before. The Void Hunters. They were creatures that lived in the empty spaces between stars, and they were even more feared than the Vorthic or cryozerg. Human Jake Morrison, the message said. We have watched your actions. We wish to meet. There are things you must know about the enemies you have fought. Jake looked at his crew. Kate Sullivan was excited about the possibility of meeting another new species. Dr. Ben Parker was curious about creatures that lived in the void of space. Amy Rodriguez was worried about the dangers, but she was also ready for the challenge. It looks like our mission is just beginning, Jake said. Set course for the void. But as they left the cryozerg system, Jake noticed something troubling. Long-range sensors were picking up movement in several parts of the galaxy. Large fleets were gathering, and they seemed to be heading toward the worlds where dangerous species lived. Captain, Lisa said quietly, I think someone is planning something big. And I don't think they're happy about the alliances we're making. Jake nodded. He had a feeling that helping the galaxy's most dangerous creatures was about to become a lot more dangerous. Dr. Elena Torres had been studying alien behavior for most of her adult life, but nothing had prepared her for what she was seeing now. She sat in the research lab aboard the New Hope, surrounded by data screens showing the most impossible thing. In galactic history, dangerous species working together. Elena was a xenanthropologist, which meant she studied how different alien species lived and thought. She had joined Jake Morrison's crew because she wanted to understand why humans were so good at making friends with creatures that everyone else feared. The data doesn't make sense, she said to Dr. Ben Parker, who was sitting across from her. According to everything we know about galactic politics, the Vorthik and Cryozerg should hate each other. They're complete opposites. Ben looked up from his notes. But they don't hate each other. They're working together better than most allied species do. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the recent battles on Korath 7 and the Cryozerg. Homeworld, look at this. In both cases, the dangerous species were losing until humans arrived. Then suddenly, they became more effective fighters. It's like humans unlock some hidden potential in them. Or maybe, Ben suggested, humans see potential that others miss. Elena had been thinking about this problem for weeks. She had studied the history of every major species in the galaxy, looking for patterns. What she found was disturbing. Ben, I think I know why this is happening, she said. It's because of where we come from. Earth? Not just Earth. The kind of world Earth is. Elena brought up a display showing planet classifications. The galaxy divides planets into categories. Paradise worlds, where everything is easy and safe. Normal worlds, where life is challenging but manageable. And then there are death worlds. Ben leaned forward. Earth is classified as a death world? One of the worst ones, Elena confirmed. Almost everything on Earth is designed to kill humans. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. Humans evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to murder them. But we survived. More than survived. We thrived. And that changed us in ways that other species don't understand. Elena showed Ben a comparison chart. Look at this. Most species evolved on worlds where cooperation was optional. If a species became too dangerous, they could just avoid each other. But on Earth, humans had to learn to work together, or they would die. Ben studied the data. So humans learned to cooperate with dangerous things because we had to? Exactly. But there's more. Elena pulled up another display. Humans also learned empathy. When you're surrounded by dangerous creatures, you have to understand them to survive. You have to know when a predator is hunting, when it's afraid, when it's protecting its young. And that translates to understanding alien species? Yes, humans can read emotional states in creatures that are completely different from us. We can see fear in a Vorthik warrior or loneliness in a Cryozerg scientist. Elena had been working on this theory for days, and now she was ready to test it. Ben, I want to try something. I want to interview representatives from each species and ask them about their experiences with humans. The first interview was with Corvus Prime, who had come aboard the New Hope for a strategy meeting. The massive Vorthic leader was too big for the ship's chairs, so he stood during the conversation. "Tell me about the first time you met humans," Elena said. Corvus's red eyes glowed as he thought. "I expected them to be afraid. All species fear the Vorthic. But Captain Morrison stepped forward when I growled at him. He showed no fear, but also no aggression. This confused me. What did you think of human fighting tactics? Strange. Humans do not fight like predators. Predators attack with strength and speed. Humans fight like prey animals who have learned. To survive, they use tricks and tools and teamwork." Elena made notes. "And this was effective?" "Very effective. The Vorthic fight as individuals, even when we are in groups. But humans made us fight as one unit. They showed us that cooperation is stronger than individual power." The interview with Frost Mother was conducted through a special communication link, since the Cryozerg leader was too cold to have in the same room. "Humans are warm," Frost Mother said, her voice like singing ice. "Not just their bodies, but their spirits. They radiate something that we had forgotten: hope. Hope? For so long we believed we were meant to be alone. Our touch brings death to most life forms. But humans found a way to work with us safely. They did not try to change us. They accepted what we are and found ways to use our abilities." Elena was starting to see a pattern. "What impressed you most about human behavior?" "Their willingness to sacrifice for others. Captain Morrison was injured protecting a Vorthic warrior. Commander Sullivan worked for days without rest to help our wounded. This is not normal behavior for most species." The most interesting interview was with Nexus 7, the leader of the Void Hunters. These creatures lived in the empty spaces, between stars, feeding on cosmic radiation. They were so alien that most species could not even understand how they thought. Nexus 7 appeared as a shifting cloud of dark energy with bright points of light that might have been eyes. "Humans are unique," it said, its voice like distant thunder. "They are the only species that sees us as beings instead of monsters." "What do you mean?" "We have been watching the galaxy for millions of years. We have seen species rise and fall. Most species judge others by their own standards. But humans try to understand others by their standards." Elena was fascinated. "Can you give me an example?" "When we first met humans, they did not ask us to change. They did not try to make us more like them. Instead, they learned about us. They discovered that we protect weaker species from cosmic threats. They saw that our hunting of dark matter keeps dangerous forces from entering the galaxy. And other species didn't see this? Other species only saw that we were powerful and different. They feared us without trying to understand us." Elena spent weeks analyzing the interviews and data. What she discovered was revolutionary. Humans were not just good at making alliances with dangerous species. They were the only species that could do it at all. "It's because of our evolutionary history," Elena explained to Captain Morrison in his ready room. "Most species evolved on worlds, where being dangerous meant being alone. If you were too powerful, other creatures would avoid you. This led to dangerous species becoming isolated and distrustful." Jake listened carefully. "But Earth was different? Earth was a nightmare world where everything was dangerous. Humans survived by learning to work with dangerous things. We domesticated wolves, rode horses, and learned to live alongside predators. We developed the ability to see past the danger to the potential for cooperation." Elena showed Jake her research on galactic history. "Look at this pattern. Every time a species becomes too powerful, they get isolated. The Vorthic became apex predators, and everyone feared them. The Cryozerg developed deadly abilities and were shunned. The Void Hunters became so alien that others couldn't relate to them. So they all became outcasts, Jake realized. Exactly, and outcasts become bitter and angry. They start to believe that they really are monsters. But humans see them differently. Elena had discovered something else important. There's another factor, Jake. Humans are relatively weak compared to most galactic species. We don't have natural weapons, armor, or special abilities. This makes us non-threatening. So dangerous species don't see us as competition? Right, but more than that, they see us as underdogs. And dangerous species understand what it's like to be misunderstood and feared. When they see humans standing up to threats despite being weak, it resonates with them. Jake thought about this. You're saying that being from a death world made us both tough enough to survive alongside dangerous species and compassionate enough to understand them? That's exactly what I'm saying. Earth created the perfect species for bridging the gap between the feared and the fearful. Alana's research was interrupted by an urgent message from Amy Rodriguez. Captain, you need to see this. We're getting reports from across the galaxy. Jake and Elena hurried to the bridge, where Amy was coordinating with their new allies. The main screen showed a disturbing picture. Military fleets from dozens of civilized species were gathering in various sectors of the galaxy. It's called the hegemony, Amy explained. A coalition of peaceful species that have decided dangerous species are too much of a threat to be allowed to exist. Kate Sullivan appeared on the communication screen from her diplomatic station. I've been monitoring their communications. They're planning simultaneous attacks on every dangerous species homeworld. They call it the final solution to the predator problem. Elena felt sick. They're planning genocide. They're planning to wipe out the Vorthic, Cryozerg, Void Hunters, and dozens of other species, Amy confirmed. They see our alliances as proof that dangerous species are organizing against them. Jake stood up. How long do we have? The attacks begin in 72 hours, Kate reported. The hegemony has been planning this for months. They have overwhelming numerical superiority. Elena realized the full horror of the situation. They're going to destroy species that have existed for millions of years, all because of fear. Not. If we can help it, Jake said firmly. Amy, contact all our allies. Tell them what's coming. Over the next few hours, the communication channels were busy with messages B. General Sam Harrison stood on the bridge of the human command ship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. But this was not a normal fleet. Ships from dozens of dangerous species flew together in formations that military experts said were impossible. Sam was a veteran of many conflicts, but he had never seen anything like this. Vorthic battle cruisers flew alongside Cryozerg ice ships. Void Hunter energy beings moved between the fleets like ghosts. And at the center of it all were human vessels, small and weak compared to their allies, but serving as the coordination hub for the entire operation. General, we're getting final reports from our scout ships, said Lieutenant Carol Davis, the communications officer. The hegemony fleets are moving into position around all dangerous species homeworlds. They'll attack in 6 hours. Sam nodded. Grimly, the hegemony had assembled the largest military force in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from 50 different peaceful species, all united by their fear of the dangerous ones. They had enough firepower to destroy entire planets. What's our status? Sam asked. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the communication screen from the New Hope. All allied fleets are in position, General, but we're still outnumbered 10-1. Numbers. Don't tell the whole story, Sam replied. How are our allies holding up? Better than expected. Corvus Prime says the Vorthic warriors are excited to finally fight alongside others instead of alone. Frost Mother reports that the Cryozerg are using teamwork tactics they learned from humans. And Nexus 7 says the Void Hunters are ready. to reveal abilities they've kept hidden for millions of years. Sam felt a surge of pride. In just a few months, humans had done what everyone said was impossible. They had united the galaxy's most feared species into a real alliance. The first attack came at the Vorthic homeworld of Korvax Prime. 3 hegemony fleets, led by the peaceful Zelani species, surrounded the planet and demanded surrender. "This is Admiral Zeltos of the Galactic Hegemony," came the transmission. "Vorthic warriors, you are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will be relocated to a secure facility. Resist, and your world will be destroyed." Corvus Prime's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "We are not just Vorthic anymore. We are members of the Apex Alliance. We do not surrender." The battle for Korvax Prime was unlike anything in galactic history. The hegemony fleets attacked with overwhelming force, expecting to crush the Vorthic quickly. But they found themselves fighting not just Vorthic warriors, but an organized defense that included humans, Cryozerg, and Void Hunters. Human tactical coordinators guided Vorthic fighters to maximum effectiveness. Cryozerg ships used their ice weapons to disable hegemony vessels without destroying them. Void Hunters phased through enemy shields to sabotage critical systems. But the most shocking moment came when a hegemony ship was damaged and drifting helplessly in space. Instead of destroying it, Corvus Prime's own ship moved to rescue the crew. "This is Corvus Prime to hegemony vessel Aurora," the Vorthic leader transmitted. "Your ship is damaged. We are sending rescue shuttles to evacuate your crew." Admiral Zeltos was stunned. "You single quotes saving us?" "We protect those who cannot protect themselves," Corvus replied. "This is what the humans taught us." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. At the Cryozerg homeworld, Frostmother's forces saved a damaged hegemony ship from crashing into the planet. The Void Hunters revealed their secret role as protectors, showing the hegemony forces recordings of the thousands of times they had destroyed cosmic threats before they could reach populated worlds. General Sam Harrison coordinated the overall defense from his command ship. "Colonel Morgan, what's the status on the Cryozerg front?" Colonel Alex Morgan appeared on screen. "The hegemony fleet there is retreating, General. They can't understand why the Cryozerg are saving their people instead of killing them." "And the Void Hunter sectors?" Complete confusion among hegemony forces. They came expecting to fight monsters, and instead found protectors. Several ships have stopped fighting entirely. But the biggest battle was taking place in the Sol system, around Earth itself. A massive hegemony fleet had come to eliminate the species they blamed for uniting the dangerous ones. Jake Morrison led the defense of Earth, but he was not just protecting humans. Ships from every dangerous species in the galaxy had come to defend the Deathworld that had changed everything. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez reported from her station, "the hegemony is demanding our surrender. They say if we give up peacefully, they'll only relocate us instead of destroying Earth." Jake looked at the massive enemy fleet surrounding his homeworld. "Tell them we decline, but also tell them something else. Tell them to watch." What happened next changed galactic history forever. Instead of attacking the hegemony fleet, the Apex Alliance ships began rescuing civilians from hegemony worlds that were under attack by other threats. Nephi's outbreak on the peaceful world of Serenity was stopped by Vorthic warriors. A mechanical plague threatening the hegemony capital was destroyed by Cryozerg technology. Void Hunters revealed that they had been secretly protecting dozens of worlds from cosmic disasters. Dr. Elena Torres was monitoring the galactic communication networks from Earth. "Jake, you need to see this. The hegemony populations are getting reports about what our allies are doing. They're starting to question the invasion." On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Zeltos was receiving similar reports. "Sir," his aide reported, Our civilians are demanding to know why we're attacking species that are protecting our worlds. The turning point came when a massive cosmic storm threatened to destroy the hegemony's most important colony world. The storm was too big for any normal fleet to stop, and millions would die. But Nexus 7 and the Void Hunters moved to intercept it. Using abilities they had kept secret for millions of years, they absorbed the cosmic storm's energy, saving the entire planet. The hegemony forces watched in amazement as the creatures they had come to destroy sacrificed themselves to save people who had just declared war on them. Admiral Zeltos opened a communication channel to Jake Morrison. "Human Captain, I don't understand. Why are your allies saving our people?" Jake smiled. "Because that's what good people do, Admiral. And dangerous doesn't mean evil." The war ended not with a great battle, but with understanding. One by one, hegemony fleets stopped fighting as their crews realized they had been wrong about the dangerous species. On the hegemony capital world, the government held an emergency session. "We have received reports from across the galaxy," the hegemony chancellor announced. "The species we call dangerous have proven themselves to be protectors. We must reconsider our actions." The formal end of the war came when Admiral Zeltos arrived at Earth to negotiate. He met with General Harrison, Jake Morrison, and representatives from all the dangerous species. "We came here to destroy you," Zeltos said to the assembled group. "Instead, you saved our worlds and our people. How can we ever repay this debt?" Corvus Prime spoke for the Alliance. "You can treat us as equals instead of monsters. You can judge us by our actions, not our appearance." The peace negotiations lasted for weeks, but the outcome was never in doubt. The galaxy had seen the truth about dangerous species, and there was no going back to the old ways. The final agreement created the Galactic Council of all species, where dangerous and peaceful species would work together to protect the galaxy. Humans were chosen to lead the council, not because they were the strongest, but because they were the best at bringing others together. 5 years later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new council headquarters, watching ships from hundreds of species dock at the station. Children from dangerous and peaceful species played together in the station's gardens, protected by guards from both groups. "It's amazing what we've accomplished," Elena Torres said, joining him at the window. She was now the council's chief xenotherapist, studying how different species could work together. "We didn't do it alone," Jake replied. "Everyone contributed." In the distance, he could see Vorthik and Cryozerg scientists working together on a new project. Void Hunters were training peaceful species in cosmic threat detection, and human diplomats were helping to resolve conflicts between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. Amy Rodriguez, now the Council's security chief, approached them with a report. "Captain, we just received word from the Outer. A new species has been discovered. They're considered very dangerous by the local populations." Jake smiled. "Well then, I guess we'd better go introduce ourselves." As the human ship prepared to leave for another first contact mission, Jake reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy was no longer divided between the feared and the fearful. Dangerous species were no longer outcasts, and peaceful species no longer lived in terror. The galaxy had learned what humans had always known, that the most dangerous creatures could also be the most loyal allies, if you were brave enough to offer them trust instead of fear. And in the vast darkness of space, new alliances were forming every day, guided by the simple human belief that everyone deserved a chance to be more than their reputation suggested. Age of the Apex Alliance had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.